Okay. Okay. Of course, there is Kings news today. After their season ended at the hands of the Dallas Mavericks, a little after the game, we find out that Monte McNair is out as general manager.
Damn.
And then we get a report from Sam Amick and Anthony Slater from The Athletic that Scott Perry could be the front runner. I'm like, wow, okay, that was fast. Maybe Calvin Booth in the mix. All right, we'll see how this process goes the next few weeks, couple weeks maybe. See how interviews take place. No. This morning, we get the news that the Kings have a new general manager. It is Scott Perry. Welcome back, Scott Perry, who was with the Kings for a summer fling in 2017.
Ooh.
A few months with Sacramento before he took a deal to go to the New York Knicks and become their GM under President of Basketball Operations Steve Mills for a few years. And then once Mills got pushed out, Leon Rose came in, and Scott worked under Leon Rose during that time for a few years, and then he did not have his contract renewed at the end of last year. So, wow, a lot to process here with Scott Perry leading this front office. What's in store? Wow, this moved fast. How are you feeling about this news that we learned today?
I mean, all the different things, right? It's like, what am I supposed to feel? What am I supposed to think? Like, sure, taking a look at it, I'm like, oh man, you couldn't just like fake me out and interview like 5 more people, even if it was going to be Scott Perry, no matter what. Yeah. But at the same time, I know there's reasons to like Scott Perry as well. So I'm not upset about it. I'm just, I'm still processing everything in life. From the season being over, and then, like our lives completely change. I mean, all of our lives completely change. You're not consuming Kings basketball every other night, so many different things. But we also knew that the offseason was going to be active with so many different things. Well, the offseason started as soon as the Kings lost. And the fact is now they already hired a new GM, and this is where we are. And so I'm just sitting here today still processing.
Yeah, and processing on the fly. I would say this too. It's like I don't think Vivek and Monty, when they met last night, when whatever the conversation was, mutually agreed to part ways or whatever, I don't think that happened. And Vivek goes, who should I call?
Should I get Scott?
Scott, are you up? Are you on the East Coast? Oh, it's 2 a.m.? What do you think about going to Sacramento? Done deal. Like, this has clearly been something that's been in the works.
Absolutely.
And so maybe there has been some unofficial talks with people. And, I think from a fan perspective, I think fans are left going today is like, how come there wasn't a thorough search?
Sure.
How come we didn't see like, hey, they're interested in these, 5 names, and why wasn't that talked about? We saw today in The Athletic from Sam Amick and Anthony Slater that Scott Perry was mentioned, Calvin Booth, who just got let go by the Denver Nuggets, and Joe Dumars, who was in Sacramento before. He just took the Pelicans front office job. Those were like 3 names maybe in the mix for this thing. So I don't know. It's like, I think Scott has a reputation that's great in this league. You don't last 25 years in the NBA if you're like just a joke. I think
Absolutely
he's got
not.
a great relationships with agents. He's got the ability to talk to players, which these are all valuable things. He also knows what the hell he's walking into.
Well, that and that's the biggest thing. Not only does he know what the hell he's walking into because he's already been around it for even just a little bit. Hello, like they've obviously been talking over the years and or in this last year, and he sees it all. And you think about what he was doing with the New York Knicks, and he was kept around because there was value to his perspective, his insight, whatever, just having him around. And to me, that means something. Again, I am going into this situation though with no expectations. And I think it's really interesting for anyone out there today to be like, oh man, what has he done? Or, oh yeah, I'm so excited for Scott Perry. Look what he's done. It's more just like, it's not apples for apples around the league and who these bosses or owners are in every single organization and how they want to do things. And with the Kings over the years, you hear so many different things with this organization. You just can't sit here today and tell me everything's going to be great. And you can't sit here today and tell me everything's going to be a dumpster fire. Like,
well,
I'm just
in all
not
fairness, if you were to bet
either
on
way.
one, you'd probably lean more heavily
Track
on the
record.
track record
Yes.
thing. You've missed the playoffs 18 of 19 seasons. Yeah, I think with Scott too, you just when you were in this league for 25 years, you've obviously seen some stuff. He was in a situation with the Knicks, like James Dolan,
You've
right?
seen some shit.
You've seen some stuff, but he's also been here. And I think the reality, though, is like it almost doesn't matter who the name is. I mean, it does. I mean, hear me out on this.
Yeah, no, I'm already there with you.
I'm reading The Athletic today, okay? And Sam Amick detailed this bit before and put it in his piece today that McNair did not want to fire Mike Brown. And that there was belief in the inner circle that maybe he wasn't keen on the idea of adding DeRozan and trading for Levine.
Sure.
Your general manager.
Yep.
Now, there's several things at play here. One, I'm sorry, if you're the GM, you got to fight for what you believe in. You know, if you're getting pushback on something,
Challenge your
if you're
bosses.
against the addition of DeMar DeRozan or Levine, then challenge and flip a desk, lose your mind.
Good.
Go down swinging, because guess what? If you don't, you're going to lose your job anyway. So you might as well just go try to do it your way and say, you know what? There's certain things I'm not going to compromise for because I have a belief that this is the wrong move for this team and I'm running this shit.
And then you flip the desk and you walk out to make the statement. Good. I like it.
When I hear that, I go, okay.
Yeah.
There is obviously some issue with trust.
Sure.
Okay. Is Scott going to get the trust,
you can
the
ask
autonomy?
The
These things are important to know, right? And until we know the answers, we have to just see it.
And that's what I was gonna say. We won't know the answers until we see it.
But
so buckle up, Buttercup.
I think on the plus side, he knows what he's walking into because he was here for a few months. Okay.
Yeah.
So
well, yeah,
we'll see what it all looks like, but we need more perspective on Scott Perry and what this all means. This is moving very fast and we're processing it on the fly. Let's catch up now with a guy who covers the NBA for ESPN and Anscape. He's a senior NBA writer. He's also a Hall of Famer. He called this a great hire by the Sacramento Kings. Get his perspective. Marc J. Spears. How are you doing, Mark?
Oh, man, just trying to get stamps on my passport. Just got back from Morocco for the Basketball Africa League and, was in Portland and Orlando, and I'm going to Boston for the game 1, and then I'll be in LA for the Lakers game 2. So I'm just trying to travel the globe, man. Well, spread love.
We know you will not be in Sacramento for the playoffs yet again for the 18th out of the last 19.
I picked Phoenix too, man. I think that's the only playing one I got wrong. So
damn.
Yeah.
Mark,
I got the right.
Where did this all go wrong for the Kings this year?
I think when it seemed inevitable that De'Aaron won out. I know what I'll say. It all went wrong when. And this isn't blaming him for doing it or blaming the host. So let me preface it by saying that. Whoever clips this, use the whole thing, please. But it started with the De'Aaron going on Draymond's podcast to me. Like that, I think, when you basically hear that your star player, needs help publicly or could be gone. And I think there was worry from the Kings in terms of, hey, we got this offer on the table and he doesn't want to sign it, because from what I'm hearing from the Kings side of things is that there was an offer there for him to sign that he didn't want to sign. De'Aaron signed, it's a he said situation, right? But I think it kind of hit the concern point, once that podcast happened. And obviously, when things went bad in late December, change with Mike Brown was made. And the thing is, it's been quite confusing to me. And look, you guys are way closer than I am. But depending on who you ask, they're pointing the finger at somebody else in terms of Mike being, dealt away, fired. Some will say De'Aaron. Some will say the other stars of the team. Some will say, Rich Paul. Some will say Vivek and, management, right? Like, I think only the select group of people really know the truth. Somewhere in there is the truth. But ultimately, Mike was let go. And that to me was like the beginning of a big domino effect. And then obviously there's a trade. And then your assistant GM goes to University of Utah in the middle of the season. I was like, I kind of felt like, he took a parachute and jumped out the plane, right? Like he saw the writing on the wall. And then obviously what happened overnight. But if there was ever a Band-Aid, or not even a Band-Aid, a stitch that I think you could put to kind of like heal the cut, slow the pain, stop the bleeding, I think Scott Perry is that. I certainly think Scott Perry is that. And, I think in hindsight, maybe at the press conference, you could ask him in hindsight, does he wish that could have been worked out that he stayed in the first place? I remember it was kind of funny. Like, Scott is like that person in King's Annals that you meet on vacation and you have a great time with him. What a great guy. And then vacation's over and he's going, right? He was there like 3 months.
3 months, and then he goes to the Knicks, takes the GM job there, and under Steve Mills.
But what he did in those 3 months, I think, were pretty significant. Like he drafted De'Aaron Fox, and if you look at that draft, somebody might say, well, he drafted Harry Giles too, and there was some good players that were selected after Harry Giles.
Donovan Mitchell.
Well, that was before Harry.
No, what I'm saying that they had the 10th pick and they traded down to 15 and 20 and got Giles and Justin Jackson.
Okay, we'll see. You got more detail. I'm looking at it. I'm blowing off the record and just seeing that they took Harry, right?
Yeah.
But De'Aaron was a good pick, and then he brought some vets, free agent wise, to the team that I thought were good additions at that time. And with Zebo, I think Zach Randolph was signed. George Hill was signed. And those were guys that, to me, wouldn't have come if Scott wasn't here. So I think the good thing with Scott is you got a veteran guy who's been there, done that, won championships with Detroit, has 20 years of experience. Also has a guy who could immediately go into the locker room right now and look De'Aaron in the eye, look Zach in the eye, look Sabonis in the eye, look Malik, look Keegan in the eye, and they'll respect him. And I think they'll give it a chance to figure out what's next. But, when you look back at it, it was like, Vlade was running the show pretty much for the most part. And, could they have pushed Vlade out there and made Scott the guy? I think that was not what Scott was trying to do, right? That wasn't his job. But I think when the Knicks came calling with a higher level offer, it was hard to turn that down. I remember Scott had not even, I don't even think he really even got all his furniture situated in his house.
Damn.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think he had to try to get out the piece or no, I think he bought a house and they had to sell it, if I'm not mistaken. So I wonder if he ever sold it. Maybe
My
he still
God.
has it.
Maybe he could just move back into it.
Yeah. You know what's funny about that too is like, he does get a lot of credit too for being able to get players in for draft workouts that the Kings were not getting at the time. And I think that was another big thing he did in his few months with the team before going to the Knicks. And the Kings actually got draft compensation back once they let him go to the Knicks. I think they got like a future second round pick in it. Mark, I want to get your perspective on this real fast. I think one thing that fans are concerned about is like, okay, all right, you move on from Monte McNair. why don't you interview more potential front office candidates? This is a big job. There's a lot at stake here. You're trying to navigate some things that could be pretty challenging coming up here. Why 12 hours later do you do this? Why not talk to 6, 7, 8 people and do like a really thorough search?
I think it's because he's been there already and they know what he was and what he could do. Also, if you look at that job at Merit, based on everything that goes on, how attractive is the job right now? Right?
Not attractive.
So, to me, under the circumstances, I kind of look at it like this. I bet you, I wouldn't be surprised if perhaps there was I'm not saying this is the case, but Joe Dumars had interest in bringing him to New Orleans. So maybe that was on the table. I'm not saying it was, but to me, I think Monty must have known for a while that he was going, and perhaps that process was taking place already.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes. I mean, he didn't. I don't think he just called Scott. Hey, we just did this. You know what I mean? Like,
No, for sure. I mean, it's clear it's been happening, but I guess the
hey,
point.
Scott, I know it's great. You know,
No, I get that.
and then, but I think under the circumstances, to get a Scott Perry is a quality hire.
Well, because I guess
I understand what you're too, but I don't know that that's the most attractive job in the world, and under the circumstances, I think you got somebody that will come in and make the job attractive.
I guess like optics is what we're kind of saying, is like over some time now, we just, even with like when Vlade hired Luke Walton, it was just like, oh, David Guerrero, Luke Walton in. And it's just like, sometimes it feels like this organization could go in the circles like that, where it's like they're not doing their due diligence, or even just faking us all out and acting like they're interviewing 7 people or whatever. Even for the coaching job,
Y'all been around long enough to know that all this stuff is been worked out behind the scenes, probably weeks before. We just, Scott just, and to be probably kept it really close to his vest. Because I'll tell you the truth, I asked him about New Orleans the other day, and if you would have asked me yesterday, I would have thought he was going to New Orleans.
Wow.
And he didn't say nothing about no Sacramento.
That's funny.
Look, he and Vivek have continued to have a good relationship. They probably still continue to be friends. I know he's solid with Martina too. So I'm guessing that there probably were some conversations over the last couple of months anyway.
So my question for you with
like, hey, it's like somebody about to have a divorce and they're getting ready to go on getting their dates lined up.
You mean they're on the app, swipe left, swipe right type thing? Like, okay.
Well, no, you just, I mean, it's a bad analogy, but it's,
oh, we like it.
I wouldn't be surprised if everybody being honest that they probably talked before, I'm sure.
Okay, so you mentioned this job not being the most attractive. What do you think is Scott Perry's biggest challenge running this front office?
Well, I think the first thing right now is you got to get the roster to be confident and wanting to be there. Like DeRozan, like, didn't he have an interesting comment yesterday about his future there? Like, you gotta like slow down the fast moving car. It's like this car's been driving, out of control, and right now you got to slow it down, get the temperature down. You know what I mean? And the one thing that Scott has that's great in a situation like this is he has great relationships with the agents. So they're going to respect him. They're going to call him back. They're going to talk to him. All right, Scott. You're going to give it a chance because of you, man. You know what I mean? Like, Scott's reputation will probably help settle the seas.
Okay. I like the agent perspective you're mentioning.
Yeah, so I think that's the first thing you got to do is settle everything down. And then the next thing you got to do, to me, is worry about the draft.
Yeah.
Coach, to me, is like, you know, what does he do? I mean, if I don't feel good for Doug's prospects. Because if I'm coming in and I'm a new guy, I interview Doug, but I interview other coaches too. And you got to be, if you're running the show, your coach has to be aligned with you.
I need at least 4 coaches interviewed for my own mental health, Mark.
Yeah. And I'm sure you'll get that.
Okay. That makes me feel better.
Well, I
will admit, like, I'm a big Scott Perry fan. So look, there's been a lot of people in our business, you know, not getting too deep, that have gotten jobs without interviews, and it hasn't been questioned. So I'm not going to sit here and question Scott.
Okay.
And then without public interviewing, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, I think in large part, Scott Perry has a great reputation in the league. You don't last 25 years in the NBA without like having a good reputation. Yeah. Even when you go back to the Knicks stint, you know, he's with Steve Mills, but then they have the change with Leon Rose, and Rose kept him on for years. That's not because he was just collecting a paycheck. Like, they valued his input. They valued his perspective with the Knicks during that time.
Yeah. I mean, there was a change in power there, and it was inevitable that they were going to like just move on and, you know, run the show their way. But again, like, I think what's important, and hey, look, you guys tell me this. The one thing that was great about the Mike Brown era, I think, was that all of a sudden Kings weren't a laughing stock anymore. There was a lot of respect. We got back to the playoffs. The team was one of the better teams in the league. You know, you could wear your shirt proudly in Sacramento. You could wear your shirt proudly in Washington. You could wear your shirt proudly in Europe, right? And people would ask you about the Kings. So I think when Mike got let go, there were probably certainly a lot of people like, dang, man, we just got this bus right? Like,
yeah,
why? Like, we're just getting respected. We're not being laughed at no more. And then now this, like, what's going on? You know what I mean? So that's why I'm saying, under the circumstances, like, Scott slows it down. You guys be like a vinyl record going 140 right now. You need to slow that record down to like 75. It needs to be a slow jam.
That's I like a little slow jam. I need that. But here's the next question I have for you. The last one. No, I love that. Okay, so you talk about his relationships with agents, his ability to connect with players. The biggest one is being able to connect with ownership, right? Like, I mean, I know he worked for James Dolan. He has a relationship with Vivek, but when you read The Athletic today, Sam Amick's talking about how, you know, Monty did not want to fire Mike Brown. Okay. Talking about that, you know, maybe Monty wasn't keen on the idea of adding Levine and DeRozan. I guess the question I have is, does Scott have that ability to, like,
people saying the assistant GM had more power than the GM? Right, so you have that aspect of it.
Do you think that Scott has the ability to kind of have the autonomy he would want, and to be able to, like, with confidence, like, make the moves that he wants, and like present in a way that's like, hey, no, like, I'm kind of running the show here. Yeah. Like, do you think he can navigate those waters?
Yeah, no, I think, with all due respect to Monty, I think Scott's longevity makes it probably easier for Vec to listen to him and to trust him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think he did trust him before, and did, you know, kind of obviously give him the reins to pick pick De'Aaron and sign some free agents. So, I do think that they do have a lot of trust in Scott, and I do think there was some disappointment in the organization when he left. And the fact that they kept in touch basically tells me that they never really wanted to be divorced in the first place. Under the circumstances, I do think that now there's not a honeymoon period, right? Like, they know each other. They've worked with him before. They know what he brings. They know the respect that he has. And it's just like bringing back an old friend. And so I think that under these circumstances, like with the draft coming, right? Like, and you got a free agency coming, and you got to hire a coach. It does, I think, benefit the Kings that they have somebody walking in that knows everybody already, that has a relationship with Don already, that has a relationship with Martina already. Now all he has to do is make sure he gets to move all his stuff in and actually gets to sleep in his bed this time.
Yeah. And for his sake, he knows what he is getting into too. That's the other thing. There's no mystery there. Mark, we can't thank you enough for hopping on during your busy schedule.
Real quick, if there was this process, I think under the circumstances, the Kings did have to move quickly.
Okay.
There's just too much going on right now.
Okay.
So,
That's fine.
That's interesting stuff. All right. I appreciate your perspective.
I get what you're saying, Morgan. I get
I
you.
know. Thank you for understanding my, what I need from my mental health.
Yeah. You know what? To me, I just got an exemption because he's been there already.
Yeah.
Okay.
I appreciate that perspective of it. Like, the honeymoon era is already over. It's like you already know what you guys are getting into. And I mean, it's true. And it's like, sure, it was short and sweet the first time around, but nothing was bad. Nothing was like, that's why he's gone. So
I think they were like, dang, maybe we should have kept him.
I like it. I like it, Mark. Mark, can you relax?
And then Saudi is leaving right after that, right? Timing is everything, but I do see Scott having success, and this may end up being his sunset job.
Okay.
Well, hey, you go get like a little bit of rest before you bounce around a little bit more, okay?
All right. I was looking forward to doing a Sacramento playoff game.
Hey, maybe next year with Scott Perry.
There we go.
5-6 years for sure.
I'll see you at the showcase.
Yeah. California Classic.
We'll see you then, Mark.
There we go.
Appreciate you joining us.
So yeah, it's been an eventful day in Kingsland. It's not the only thing that went down, a new GM, of course, but the Kings also had player exit interviews today where the majority of the roster is made available in 15-minute increments to the media. What's your biggest takeaway from what we heard today from some of the players?
The overall, I don't know if you want to call it shock or emotions from each player talking about never have I ever dealt with anything like this season.
Yeah. I've been in the league a long time. I've never seen this.
Yes.
This is the craziest season.
And you usually don't get, if you hear that from one player, it's like, you understand what they went through as an individual. You heard it from almost an entire roster today.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've gone over this so many times, but it's like, on the surface, you're talking about, a coaching change in December. That's a big deal. The De'Aaron Fox, the rumor circulating, finally the trade. Luke Laux leaves, right?
Yeah.
Wes Wilcox leaves. And at the end of the season, once you get eliminated, Monte McNair fired. 12 hours later, you have a new GM in Scott Perry. Okay. There's a lot to process for fans, but also for the players. And it was interesting. It was you could just tell these players were yeah, we saw some shit this year. We need some time to process this stuff. Some of the big things that we have heard about in recent weeks has been something about Domantas Sabonis about, hey, he's going to have some questions about his future going forward. And he was asked about that today by the media.
answers on where the direction goes within this organization. What factors are you thinking about and considering when you're asking about being in Sacramento long term?
First of all, I want to say I love it here. I want to stay here. I want to win here. I also do want to know what's going to happen. All these things are happening so quick. I want to get together with the new people, whoever comes in, and really try to get this right, and get it back to where it was year one.
Domas, along those lines, do you want to have a say? Like, if you are in the cards for this going forward, do you want to have an active voice and a say in maybe directions and decisions going forward?
Yeah, I wish that would be great. To trust some of your guys who've been here longer on how to try and change things around.
I guess along those lines, you just said you're kind of learning of the news as it's happening. Did anybody consult you at all, whether that be with the Monte decision or the hiring or anything like that?
No, nothing at all.
And then can I just ask you about Keegan Murray?
So there's Sabonis talking about what has transpired. What stood out to you about that?
How quickly he answered some of these questions. It's Domas, you're sometimes going to get short, to the point, all the different things. But when Tristy asked him about being consulted on the situation, and he said no, it was how he said it too, right? With his body language and basically wanting to be a part of these decisions now, because how he views himself with this organization and where it's going. But now those questions still do have to loom when you think about, okay, where is this organization going with their head coach? I mean, we hear rumors and all these different things, but he wants to be a part of some of the decision making.
And the reality is, you like him saying, I love the city, I want to be here. Mm-hmm. There's always a but. And I think that's been a common theme over the years. No, I love Sacramento, I love this, I love this, but what are we doing next? And I think it's a fair thing for him to ask. And unfortunately, it's not a fun question to deal with, because these players have felt uncertainty for sure during the last season, but the fans have felt that for a very long time. Another thing that was really interesting to me is how quickly he answered the question about what the Kings need. Here's Domantas Sabonis talking about some of the needs.
DeMar talked a little bit about the need for some tweaks. Obviously, this team went through a lot of injuries, a lot of changes, ups and downs, and it's understandable that it would be hard to be cohesive on the court. What, in your estimations, do you agree with that there needs to be some tweaks, and maybe where would be a spot that you think?
The biggest thing is we need a point guard. That's for sure.
Simple. I didn't even hear that when I was there. Simple.
He cut him off.
We need a point guard, that's for sure. And then the stare. Like, it's clearly a guy that's not happy about the situation. And look, they lost their point guard at the trade deadline. They lost their guy at the trade deadline, and they were trying to do this like makeshift thing with like, oh, can Malik play that role? And it was something we talked about at the time, is like, Malik is thriving right now in this particular role where he's playing next to Fox, but it's going to be different when Fox leaves.
Yep.
And sure enough, it was. And so it's so true. And like last night, when Monk is out, when he's not even a traditional point guard either, and he's kind of thrust into that position, you're seeing it even more. You're like, dude, it's so stagnant. The inconsistencies with the pace, getting players organized. How many times I have seen in recent games, like where Sabonis is like butt naked, wide open on a roll, and he doesn't get the ball, and he's jumping up and down frustrated. Not because it's like, oh, I need to score. He could score, but he can get the defense to collapse.
He just
the ball
wants
gets
it to be
moving.
quick. He wants someone with a vision. He wants someone managing the floor. He wants, I mean, and that's where I know basketball is going into the direction of positionless basketball. Like, it has over however many years now. But even if you don't have the purest of pure point guards out there, you need someone with those traditional skill sets. And you see how beneficial it is to have even just a real floor manager out there that can be a playmaker. And there's certain teams where there's going to be a roster where you need that score first point guard. But I think with this team especially, you need someone who's going to be an aggressive scorer, but is also this willing passer, this willing cutter, doing so many different things, but has that vision as well in that point guard mentality. It's a quarterback mentality. It's a different type of mentality, and this team definitely needs it.
That can make the right pass.
Yes.
That can get the team organized and push the pace. If you hear noises in the background,
Jesus,
it's Carlin,
Carlin.
who is just scratching for no reason right now.
Like, bro.
Hey, chill, man. We know you're frustrated. He's frustrated. Hey, can you blame him?
No,
I
okay.
don't blame him.
Actually, scratch away.
You're good. You're good, Carlin. We'll get through this together. I know. You're feeling it too. But I just was those answers. It was not your normal Domantas Sabonis media session.
No.
Like it was a little more like assertive
Edgy?
and like, yeah, I have some things to say. And that's why the next few weeks are going to be interesting. Scott Perry will have a press conference. We'll learn more about, his vision and what he wants to do long term with this team. Because he's got his work cut out for him when you're trying to produce in the Western Conference and navigate a roster that's not like chock full of cap space. And at this point does not have a first round pick this year. There's going to be some challenges ahead. Anyway, anything else stand out to you today in regards to the exit interviews? I had a couple more things.
Yeah, please proceed.
Malik Monk talking about playing 4 different roles this year.
Uh-huh.
And he said he enjoyed most playing the 2-guard spot.
That was something
next
I
to
was
a point guard.
going to mention next because we were talking about that
Yeah.
position. And I think it's obvious, right? Like that's where he was thriving, and especially having a point guard like De'Aaron Fox. And how many times you said this, Deuce, to so many De'Aaron Fox haters out there, you're like, you guys, Malik is not going to be the same when De'Aaron is not out there. It elevated his game. It was complementary to his game in so many different ways. The pressure it takes off, the things that it would allow him to do in that shooting guard role, and for him to become that true point guard, it was going to be a shift. And you could see it was a shift mentally. It was a shift for the team. It was a shift for Malik Monk. And we need to see Malik Monk thrive. And so I don't blame him for having that analysis of his game.
And to the point about De'Aaron, it's not like I'm acting like he's some pure point guard like Steve Nash. Of course, he's a scoring guard, but it's just what he does to a defense
As a threat.
with the pace, the change of pace, his physicality. Even if you don't look at him as like a marquee 3-point shooter, teams still have to guard him because of what he can do out there. And it just makes life easier for someone like Malik Monk in that 2-man game with Sabonis. I felt like after he left, that was gone. The Monk Sabonis 2-man game, we did not see as much of it, right? They played a completely different style of basketball. And, Trey Lyles was asked about this too. He was asked about, I think it's Matt George that was talking to him, saying, think back to that original Beam team. How do you bottle up kind of and recapture what you guys were doing so well that season? Like, how do you do that? And Trey's like, that's a great question. But the biggest thing we did then is like, we weren't stagnant. Like, we were moving constantly. Everybody was moving. And that was gone. That year one, we were running up and down the floor. We were taking threes. We were playing with great pace and energy. And we got away from that the next year. And it's so true. Like, I think specifically now to this particular team post-trade deadline, what was their identity? Like you didn't know. It's like,
There wasn't.
There's a lot of stagnant play. When it looked good, they were playing with pace, knocking down shots.
Well, I thought it was interesting when Domas did say something about the locker room, when saying like this was one of the best locker rooms I've ever been a part of. I thought that was really interesting because I thought the togetherness on the floor and the connection on the floor didn't look like it was there. And I think some people could say like, oh, well, they didn't have a training camp. They didn't have time, blah, blah, blah. Other teams figure it the F out, right? Like you're professional basketball players. You have a coaching staff. You have things where in pieces where you can figure, and good enough pieces on this team too, to figure something out. And nothing was ever figured out.
I hear that, but like you mentioned, like, hey, most teams after the trade deadline, like they make moves, they figure it out. Yeah, most teams also don't like have a interim head coach while doing this and trying to also keep winning games at the same time and try to navigate that. And that was another thing I think that jumped out to me is the guys talking about Doug Christie, DeMar DeRozan talked about the immense respect he has for him, Sabonis. All the guys talked about what Doug Christie was thrown into and the challenges that came with that, being a first-time coach, and how they respected his approach and that he did not ask anything of them that was unfair. Like, they gave him a lot of credit for based on the circumstances that he was dealt.
No, and that was cool to see, because it's hard to give anyone love after a frustrating season and after a frustrating loss as of last night. But yeah, there was another thing that Malik said that I really wanted to get to, and it was about him being asked about, like, hey, going into the offseason and with everything being so wild, like, how are you feeling about next season? And he's like, I'm all in. No, like, no questions asked. Like, yeah. And then Deuce, 5 minutes later, then 4 more questions go around. And Deuce is like, you know what? I'm going to ask, even though he said no questions asked. What makes you all in? And he was just basically saying the fans, like, everything, like, when you have a city that loves you and you have something that makes you like a place where you feel like you're getting better and better at basketball, like, of course you're going to be all in. I thought his answer was fair. I thought your follow-up was fair, even after he said no questions asked.
I mean, I thought he was like, I'm all in. There's no question about, like, that's how I took it. But I'm also like, well, yeah, what makes you so confident about saying you're all in, you know? I mean, so it's interesting. He sounded like he's like, hey, I want to be here. I want to be here long term. And it seems like everybody does. Even DeMar DeRozan was asked if he has any regrets about signing. He was, I have no regrets here. But you could tell, like, he was having some questions too. He wants to know what the uncertainty, like, I think, messed with a lot of guys this year.
Absolutely.
Not knowing. It's like, we come in, oh, we got a new coach. Okay. Oh, we got new players. Oh, we're losing an assistant coach. Oh, this guy's leaving. It was just a constant loop, a doom loop of boom. This guy's hurt. Okay. Oh, you need me to start? Okay. I'm coming off the bench now. Okay. Like, constantly.
Didn't Malik say he had 4 different roles this season?
I mean, you think about it. He was a starting guard at one point. He was coming off the bench. He was the starting point guard. He went back to the bench. It was just a variety of things and shifts that had to take place throughout the season that I think can be challenging for players to navigate. And obviously, it was a great challenge that they could not overcome as a group. 1, sure, the challenges, but 2, like, it's what we talked about last night. This group is just not good enough long term. Like, we're focusing more on what the players had to say, but you know, some of the tweaks that we talk about, it's like I'm listening to Keegan Murray, and he's talking about how he progressed this year. And he said, I feel like I did get better. I got way better defensively. I can guard 1 through 5. But he also talked about how, like, taxing it is. And, like, ideally, he's not guarding 5s all the time.
Yeah.
And I cannot help but think about that with this group, is the responsibility that he was facing every single night, guarding the best guy. And some nights, the best guy was someone like Anthony Davis last night, which he did a pretty damn good job on. Or some nights it's Steph Curry or Donovan Mitchell. He was asked to do so much, and he was like the one guy that could do it.
And that's where it becomes, it's not about, like, that's unfair for him, boo-hoo, like, he shouldn't have to do that. No, that's not what it's about. It's about, this is a team sport, and they shouldn't have to rely on him in every single situation to take on the best guy, from their point guard to the best shooter in the game to the biggest player out there. I mean, he just needs some help when it comes to that. And it would just allow him to be great on both ends and both sides of the ball, rather than just defensively someone that you can rely on every single night.
Jake LaRavia talked to Brendan Nunez, put this out there just a bit ago. Jake LaRavia was asked about his future heading into free agency. He said, I could definitely see myself back in Sac. I really enjoyed Doug as a coach. Him getting that job, I would enjoy that. I thought this was a very beneficial move for me, and I thought it played out really well.
Aww.
And of course, the Kings are limited as to what they could pay him. I think $5.5 million is the max, but he's a player that you would think any team would like to have, and especially a team that is just thirsty for size and defensive ability. And based on some of Scott Perry's previous comments in the recent weeks doing podcasts, he was talking about this version of the Knicks, and he was just talking about how challenging it is when you're just an offensive team come playoff time.
Yeah.
And you can only lean on the offense so much. At the end of the day, you got to have deep defenders to get stops. And it's like, well, yeah, no shit. Now you got to be able to get those guys. You got to have the buy-in from everybody to go get those guys to improve the team, because the best teams have that switchability. They've got the physicality. you can't hunt. You can't go hunting. And the Kings, unfortunately, with their roster as it was constructed, there are plenty of guys for these teams, especially playoff teams, to hunt. They're like, I'll go Levine here. I'll go Sabonis here. I'll go to DeRozan here. And it puts guys like Keon and Keegan and someone like Jake in a tough spot. I am encouraged to hear that he would like the potential. He could see himself being in Sacramento.
Yeah. And by the way, I think too, with some of these things, there's going to be people out there that listen to this podcast and go, wait, like, aren't they just saying what they're kind of supposed to be saying?
True.
Like they want a job, blah, blah.
It would be pretty insane if Jake LaRavia was like, dude, I got to be honest. Good fucking talking to you guys. I'm out.
But like they also don't have to
True.
put it in those words, I guess is my point as well. And I think with some of these guys, when you look at their body language and how they're saying certain things, you don't feel like it's just like fake. You feel like, well, there's something else. And maybe too, it's just like, because they have a job in the league. You know, for some, they're just like, hey, it's a job in the league. It's a role in the league. I'm here. I'm living here. I'm in California. I like it, whatever it may be. And so they're just like, yeah, of course, I like it. Let's figure it out. Let's go. And for some too, like when they see these changes, they go, okay, this could be a cool thing too. And then for others, it's like, with these changes, is it going to be a year of building or is it going to be a year of reaching the playoffs? Because someone like DeMar DeRozan's like, yo, I'm going into year 17. I don't have this time to just like rebuild with a whole bunch of different people.
Well, I think if you're looking to go that route, DeMar would be elsewhere. And that's probably what is likely to come, in my opinion.
Crazy.
I mean, if you're talking, if Scott Perry has a certain vision for a team that includes having versatility in defense, you're probably leaning a different direction,
For sure.
like, just to be fair. So I don't know. There's so many questions we don't know. We'll hear from Scott Perry at some point. We got to find out who is going to be the head coach of this team. Sam Amick of The Athletic reporting that it's trending like it could be Doug Christie in his latest piece with The Athletic, talking about the Kings hiring Scott Perry. It said, while Perry is expected to have influence on the Kings' ultimate choice for head coach, team sources say interim coach Doug Christie is well positioned to keep the job, though Christie said he has yet to be given any firm assurances. I don't know. I don't know what to make of that right now. I mean, I think it is so important to have a process in which you interview candidates for the head coaching job.
Yep.
And if Scott Perry can legitimately walk away and go, you know what, based on what I've heard from the players who have been here this year, based on talking to assistants, based on talking to people in the building and all the people we talked to, you know what, I think Doug is in a good position for this team we're trying to build going forward. Okay. But I think you have to talk to other guys or people before you get to that point. Because it's good.
You have to.
To me, it's about building relationships. It's about getting outside perspective from someone who's not in your building about, hey, what do you see with what's going on? You've coached against this team before. What do you see?
There's some smart basketball people out there.
I mean,
and you gotta knowledge is power.
And the
gotta
names
pick
that are
people's
out there,
brains.
right? I mean, Taylor Jenkins is out
I
there.
know.
You're not going to interview Michael Malone, fine. I get that, probably because of history, right?
Yeah.
Mike Budenholzer, who knows? Like, to me, it's also, what path are the Kings going to take? Are they still trying to do this? Like, no, we make some tweaks and we're going to move up in the West. I'm looking at this going, where's the path? Honestly, where's the path? Or is it about, you know what? For the first time ever, we're really thinking about going with some youth. Give Keegan some more opportunity. Keon some more opportunity.
Just give us a direction.
What's the direction? A lot to go over this offseason. We'll have you covered, of course, more Scott Perry content. We'll learn more about him and his journey. We'll look ahead to the Kings coaching search. What else could be happening? It's not going to stop. We're basketball sickos.
We'll
Plus,
be here.
We're going to have NBA playoff content too. If you have thoughts on this last, 12 hours, the Kings already have a new GM. What? Let us know in the comments below. What do you want to see this offseason? How are you feeling about all this? For the audio listeners, you can always email the show at deuceandmo@gmail.com. We appreciate you guys so much for being on this journey with us. We love you guys, but we got to go.
You all have a wonderful rest of your day. See ya.
Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo. They tell you what they know. Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo, Deuce and Mo. The podcast that you know.